seated. Good afternoon, everyone. It looks like we have counsel present, defendants present. Are we ready to proceed? Mr. Ronstadt and Ms. Rhodes. Ms.
Yes.
Rhodes, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. We are ready to proceed.
Yes, sir. You may call your next witness or however you want to proceed.
And so the court knows, and I know we filed a document of such, but our proposed next order is not to specifically call a witness, but to spend a little bit of time addressing the community impact. Of course, a large part of the court's consideration today with regard to sentence is the seriousness of the offense. No one, of course, felt that more deeply than the Ridgeway family and the Kentner jogger. But in this case, that seriousness was felt in a bigger, larger community. We can see that represented in our audience today, as members of the Jefferson County School District have appeared, specific individuals from Witt Elementary, the Chief of Westminster, and numerous representatives from their department, and the FBI. I would ask the court at this time to hear from Chief Burke of the Westminster Police Department.
Thank you, Chief. Chief, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir. Please.
Thank you. I'll try to keep my comments brief and succinct, but first of all, I do appreciate this opportunity to address the court. Sir, I've lived in the Westminster community and served as a law enforcement officer in the Westminster community for almost 4 decades. And I can tell you unequivocally that this case impacted both our community and our law enforcement professionals like no other in the history of our department or our city. This crime, beginning with the assault on the Kentner jogger, instilled fear in our community. We had children afraid to go to school, afraid to enjoy the parks, open spaces, the amenities our city offered. We had parents afraid to let their children go to school, afraid for their children's safety at all times when they were out of their sight. Your Honor, I think as we would all recognize, a family's worst nightmare is an abduction and a murder of a child. Children are most important and precious. They're most important and precious, and we all have a tremendous sense and urge to provide their protection and see to their well-being. And I can tell you, sir, that from the standpoint of a community and a law enforcement agency, in addition to the family, this represented the worst nightmare. We felt an obligation and duty to protect our most vulnerable in society. And the brutality, the calculated callousness, the heinous nature, the horrific details of this case, quite frankly, are like nothing I've seen in my 4 decades in law enforcement. I can tell you that not only did this case traumatize our citizens, it traumatized our law enforcement officers. I still have officers seeking counseling and mental health services to cope with some of the trauma that they were exposed to in this case. The investigation that we conducted in this case is unequivocally and without a doubt the biggest criminal case the city of Westminster has ever been involved in, and I can say, I believe accurately, that it probably parallels the biggest criminal investigations in the history of this state and parallels many of the biggest similar types of investigations across the country. We had thousands of citizens volunteer to assist us in this investigation, first in the search for Jessica, when we were searching open areas and parks and open spaces. We searched over 40 square miles of open ground. We searched 18 bodies of water with divers and sonar. We had 75 law enforcement partners from all levels of government, federal, state, county, and local, who assisted us. We've identified over 1,000 officers or public service, public safety officials who assisted us in the course of this investigation. For approximately 3 weeks, this was a 24/7 maximum intense investigation. We had incident commanders and a command post operational, again, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and expended a tremendous amount of resources and effort in this case. I've struggled for words and adjectives to try to convey the impact on both our community and the law enforcement community. And the best analogy that I can come up with is the way we all felt after September 11th, 2001. I believe that in our community, the emotional shock and trauma that we were all experiencing was very similar to what we as a country had experienced on that date. Again, I have never seen my community hurt more or bleed more, in a figurative sense, and suffer more. And people were afraid, like I say, to just enjoy the benefits of living in our community. I don't want to belabor my comments, so let me just say, Your Honor, that particularly due to my almost 4 decades of law enforcement experience and never having seen a case like this that involved such a pure act of evil, cruel callousness, that if this were a death penalty case, which I realize it is not, I would be urging you to impose that penalty, sir. But recognizing that it's not, I certainly am urging you, sir, and requesting that you would pose the maximum penalty possible. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. It will come as no surprise to the court that the schools were, of course, deeply impacted, not just Witt Elementary, but Jefferson County Schools district-wide. Superintendent Cynthia Stevenson was kind enough to write a letter, and what we've chosen to read from that letter is just the part that addresses the broader community, as the principal of Witt is prepared to speak to Your Honor today. And she said, a tragedy at this level does not only impact immediate community. 85,000 children and 12,000 employees were affected deeply by the loss of Jessica. In every neighborhood across Jefferson County Schools, parents were fearful for their children and expected teachers and principals to provide extra security and counseling for students. Teaching the curricula became secondary as teachers cared for frightened children and worried parents. The Jefferson County Communication Department worked overtime to provide information and responses to questions that really had no answers. In countless schools and communities, parents and teachers dissolved into chairs as they came to the belief that our children were never completely safe, even a block from our own houses. Our teachers and principals were left for caring for parents who needed reassurance rather than focusing on academic achievement. Our basic mission was disrupted because the safety of our children is central to the values of Jefferson County. This senseless tragedy violated our values at the most fundamental level. We will never completely recover in any of our communities. And with that, Your Honor, Ms. Zimmer, again, the principal of Witt Elementary, has a brief statement she'd like to make to Your Honor.
Ms. Zimmer, thank you. Ms. Rhodes, thank you. Ms. Zimmer, I read your letter. It was very good.
Your Honor, it's impossible to say what the full impact of Austin Sigg's actions have had on the Witt school community. I continue to hear stories and am sought out for advice. Just this past weekend, a teacher shared with me that she came into work but wouldn't have come into work unless she brought her dog. I've known this teacher for 5 years, and she always used to come into work on the weekends alone. These are all related to the events of October 5th, 2012, a day that will always be seared into our hearts. I'll begin by addressing the effect on safety and education of my students. After October 5th, the students missed out in deep, rigorous instruction for nearly 2 months, and even after that, the recovery was slow. Please understand that this is not due to a lack of effort on my teacher's part, but due to the impossibility of focusing on reading and writing when an emotional upheaval had taken over the school. We had a multitude of strangers in our building for days on end, including mental health providers, police officers, school district personnel, and parents. Every single one of these individuals was there to help us, but it was hardly business as usual. School lockouts had become commonplace for us. It's impossible for a student to focus on his teacher when there are a bevy of police officers, investigators, walking outside your door looking for evidence of who kidnapped and murdered your friend. Students missed class because they were seeking counseling support or feeling ill and spending time in the clinic. Teachers did their best to keep instruction moving, but sometimes that was not what was best for students. You see, as educators, we love our students, and they absolutely love their teachers back. Children turned to us for answers, security, a hug. During this time, we had a whole different set of needs to meet. All the while, we were needing the same thing. Security could not be tighter at my school unless we had an armed guard. We received 9 video cameras that are positioned outside of the school, and we now operate on a 24/7 lockdown system. Visitors must be identified through a buzzer and camera system before they are allowed to enter the building. No one dares prop open a stifled classroom door for fresh air. That is just seen as easy access to an unwanted intruder. With all these factors combined, it is no wonder why our state assessment scores went down in virtually every area. This year, we are not only striving to reach a typical rate of learning growth for our students, but we're also attempting to make up for the deficits caused by last year. This is quite the task, since it's events like this sentencing, that give us pause, divert our attention, and rekindle the grief for the loved one we lost, our Jessica. As mentioned earlier, the emotional upheaval has been suffocating for all of us, which is far more significant than test scores. Fear has intruded our lives, at times becoming debilitating. Like the teacher mentioned in the beginning, many of us are afraid to go anywhere alone. A favorite hobby of mine is trail running. I haven't run a trail since September of 2012. We stand outside store entrances, surveying the parking lot to ensure there is a clear path to our car. Many of us have armed our homes. I alone keep 3 self-defense devices in my bedroom. There are some of us that have experienced the onset or reoccurrence of behaviors such as smoking or eating disorders. We are treated for anxiety and depression with medication as well as therapy at times. We have nightmares. We are often in a daze or deep in our own thoughts, resulting in injury and accidents. We cry without knowing why. The most devastating impact for the adults in my community is watching our children hurt. Our kids have heard descriptions and details that no child should ever even have to think about. Their innocence have been ripped away in one single day. I have kids who still cannot sleep in their own beds. They sleep with a sibling or a parent. One parent shared with me just last week that his son still sleeps on the parent's bedroom floor. I have kids who suffer from severe anxiety, have developed obsessive-compulsive behaviors, or refuse to be left alone for any length of time. I have kindergartners and first graders who have nightmares and then tell stories about how their mom was kidnapped and killed. Anger also runs through our children. I've got older boys who get into fights and then questioned after. They have no idea what they were so angry about. Lashing out at a parent, teacher, or principal and crying uncontrollably have become a norm. This is but a small slice of the totality of how our lives have changed. Words fail when trying to describe this last year. Despondency at its best. We miss Jessica. We really, really do. We miss the happy, funny, upbeat, caring little girl who had the gentlest eyes, those cutest freckles, and the most beautiful heart that has captured all of us. We miss Jessica.
Thank you, Honor. And Ms. Stevenson is present in the courtroom. We just chose to read her letter on her behalf. The court, as you mentioned when we first came in this morning, you read numerous victim impact statements, and some of those statements were for people who don't traditionally fall under the Victims' Rights Act. But that being said, we've chosen a few excerpts of statements written so that the court can have an understanding and the community can have an understanding of how this impacted the community. A young girl wrote to the Westminster Police Department, "I'm so happy that you found the guy in charge for kidnapping and killing Jessica Ridgeway. Thank you for protecting me and keeping me safe. I am glad that you found him so I don't have to worry about him." Another woman wrote, "We are a community that feels we cannot exhale. We must attempt to go on with our daily lives and our normal routines with the knowledge that is difficult to swallow. It is hard. Yet this is a luxury you do not have. Your daily routine is completely altered. Your daily work now requires you to contemplate the unthinkable." Another woman wrote, "Thank you all for the hours you spent looking for this precious child. You are all heroes to me and the community of Westminster and Arvada, as well as Colorado." And finally, Your Honor, just one sentence from a letter written by a father in the neighborhood. "Each person lost their little girl, a bit of their innocence and assurance that things like this don't happen here." With that, Your Honor, we'd ask to conclude with a brief video of the community impact. It's only 3 minutes long. That was put together by the Westminster Police Department public information officers with help from other professionals.
We have a 10-year-old missing girl. It started with but a few simple words that were heard by an entire community.
I want to look for her and I want to find her.
In those first hours, from all over the community, they came. Even before the sun could rise, the desire of the community to help. Then,
we got an unplanned volunteer program. We didn't expect and we didn't go out into the community asking for volunteers. They came to us and they really demanded that we find something that they could do to help.
It meant so much to me. I mean, it means still so much to me now to have all of that strength and support from people that we don't even know.
Jessica's Aunt Becca and their entire family knew they were not alone in this search.
It's just an amazing amount of people coming and lifting us up. It's very touching.
They joined together to work with law enforcement and firefighters. Everyone, it seemed, worked together to find Jessica.
Couldn't imagine if it was my girls. I wouldn't be able to stop, so.
And the community didn't. Day and night, the search went on.
It's probably the biggest case that Westminster as a community and as a department has ever handled.
The biggest case and a response to match it.
For Westminster, this depleted every resource we had. From the newest sworn police officer to the civilian staff we had, all the way up to the police chief. Everybody was involved.
The search for Jessica Ridgeway, plain and simply, touched an entire community.
There was a group within the walls of Westminster that simply disappeared because those walls went down. The fire department and all of those resources, every department in the city, ultimately 75 public safety agencies, and what we've identified is over 1,800 public safety professionals came to our aid from across the country to help.
Yeah, just when you think the world is so horrible, you turn around and see so many people giving you strength, and it was just amazing.
Because of the strength of a community standing together, it endured the worst of days. There were balloons for a little girl who loved the color purple. Together, they stood bearing as one the burden of loss, a pain that likely will always be. But so too will be the memory of how a 10-year-old girl brought us all together.
There's emotion. We're human, so there's emotion in every case that we deal with. This went beyond that. This was 20 days of us functioning at our best.
And so it is that now, a year removed from that time, a statue now stands as a reminder. And, oh, by the way, notice the color of the flowers.
It was aptly named Teamwork. And we look back now and reflect that this case, the individuals and everybody that was involved demonstrated what teamwork truly means.
from now, we will look back and we will remember. The pain and loss will always be there, but maybe more so in time, we will remember that smile and how Jessica Ridgeway brought together a community.
The community showed the spirit that people who live and work and play, people who work, that call home Westminster, they showed us what spirit truly means.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this point, Your Honor, we'd ask the court to hear from those that did write in victim impact statements, and specifically who have victim rights, who want to address Your Honor. The individual that we've referred to over this last year as the jogger is not present today. She did send a statement this morning that she asked to be read. And by statement, I mean she made some responses to some questions that were asked in her victim impact statement that the court has not been previously presented with. How has this crime affected your relationship with others? She writes, I am much more reluctant to form relationships with new people. Before, I was very outgoing and willing to connect and converse with anyone. I do not trust newcomers. When passing people, while walking anywhere, I try to notice any specific details about their appearance because I question everyone. When asked how this crime has affected her emotionally, she responds by saying, I'm much more cautious than ever before. I no longer run outside. I even get frightened running on my treadmill in the basement. I look next to the machine, see the crawl space, and think about Jessica and everything she went through, and the possibility of how I could have had the same outcome. I often think about what happened and what would have occurred, and I find myself being much more reserved and introverted. I have realized that if I see someone with similar characteristics to the defendant, I immediately become much more aware of where I'm at and much more observant. I'm very sad for the Ridgeway family and think of Jessica very often. With working with kids, anytime I see a young girl, anyone with glasses or wearing purple or named Jessica, my heart drops. I can't imagine how much she suffered in her last days of life. And I think about the life that she was robbed of and all the experiences she will never have. I often think about her family and how much they must miss her. I feel devastated for everything they have gone through. How has the crime affected you mentally? Mentally, I'm much more reluctant. In the place in which I grew up, the lake in which I played at as a child is no longer safe in my mind, and will take much more time before I can willingly go back there alone. In response to the question, do you fear the defendant? And if so, please explain. Now that defendant has been caught and punishment will be implemented, immediate threat and fear has been removed. However, what I most fear is the unknowing. It never occurred to me prior to the crime that there were vicious, malicious, murderous among us, those that we have met. I have always tried to recognize the best in people, but now I find it frightening that among the strangers that we pass every day are attackers and murderers. That certainly frightens me the most. That's all. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Easter.
Thank you, Judge. Your Honor, at this time, we would like to present several family members of Jessica Ridgway's. We'll start with Scott Fishley, F-I-S-C-H-L-E.
Sir, good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
State your name for this lady.
My name is Scott Fishley, F-I-S-C-H-L-E.
Thank you, sir.
I am a close friend of the Ridgeway family and a co-worker with Sarah. I also knew Jessica Ridgeway and spent some time with her as well. I have many fond memories of our time together. Sarah called me on October 5th, 2012 at around 5 p.m. to let me know that Jessica did not make it to school that day and did not come home. That night at work, we couldn't focus on her job. While at work, we heard there might be a search that night, so a few of us left and went to volunteer our time. Around 1 a.m., they told us to go home and come back in the morning, so we went back to work. When we got off work at 7 a.m. on October 6th, we went back down to search for Jessica in various parks and open spaces in that area. That following Monday, October 8th, Sarah called me again and said that I could come over to see her. I spent the next 5 days at the Ridgeway house with the family. Work was kind enough to give me that time off to be with Sarah. That week was the most difficult week emotionally of my life. We went through a range of emotions, wondering where Jessica was, learning that they found her body, and finally having conclusive evidence that the body they found was Jessica's. Since that week, often I've woke up expecting to be able to see Jessica again, only to realize that I will never see her bright smile again. I've had dreams about her. I've lost sleep because of the details I've been privy to, and have taken personal time off work to attend court with the family. I am a different man today than I was before this horrific nightmare occurred. A part of me died that cold October day in 2012. I haven't gone through any mental health counseling, but I am surrounded by a great support of friends who are willing and able to hold me up when my knees give out and I feel like the wind has been knocked out of me. They have been my support, and to them I say thank you. This crime has affected me personally in that I've experienced loss of sleep, loss of appetite, and have had unusually high levels of stress due to what happened on October 5th and since, such as court dates, holidays, and other important mile markers regarding Jessica. I am not personally afraid of the defendant, but I do fear for others should he ever be released from prison on parole. I feel that humanity is safer not having a person who has proven himself capable and willing to commit a heinous crime against a child locked up behind bars. I believe that he should not be given the opportunity to have access to do this again for the rest of his natural life. Also, through the punishment of this one individual, a message can be sent to all other would-be offenders that such behavior and actions can and will not be tolerated, and that those willing to defy the laws of this land will be dealt with accordingly. I do not know the defendant personally. I have never met him. I cannot speak for or against him for this reason. I can only speak for the victim, Jessica Ridgeway. She was a kind, sweet, innocent child who was bound for greatness in this world. Perhaps not in the grand, world-changing sense, but in the short 10 years that she lived on this life, the lives that she came into contact with have been forever changed for the better. My life is richer for having known her. The memories I have of her, I will cherish for the rest of my days. I believe that due to the nature of the crime and the manner in which it was committed, the court should impose the maximum sentence that the law allows. Since the defendant has pleaded guilty to all counts charged against him, he should be held to every one to the fullest extent. I believe that whatever rights and privileges afforded the defendant should be held to the minimum that the law allows, as he afforded no privileges to the victim. I also believe that releasing this person on parole at any time while he is living would be a mockery and an insult to the memory of the victim, Jessica Ridgeway. I also believe that it would be devastating to the living relatives of Jessica to see the defendant released on parole any time before he dies. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Easter.
Your Honor, Beverly Sternberg is next to address the court.
Sternberg, thank you.
Beverly Sternberg, Sternberg. Sorry. I remember the last night that I ever saw Jessica. It was the day before she was taken at her cousin's softball game. She was happy and cheering for her favorite players and talking up a storm. Nothing could ever upset her. She was always happy and she always wanted to show you a new dance or a new song she learned. She was an amazing little girl. Her light touched so many people, and it was snuffed out before her time. When Jessica was taken from her family, everyone felt a piece of themselves disappear. When she was taken, everything seemed less important. Going to family dinners and softball games was without joy. Since Jessica's been taken, this family has not been the same, and it never will be again. When someone is ripped from your life in the way that Jessica was taken from us, there's no moving on or getting over it. You just learn to cope with the pain and understand that it will be a part of you for the rest of your life. I cannot help but have joy and relief in my heart because my lovely little Jessica is safe in a place where no one can ever hurt her again. And while I would love to have her here with us to watch another game or go to dinner again, heaven is the only other place I'd want her, safe from the pain and the horror that was her final day. Thank you.
Okay. So my name is Nick Pesavento, and I was Jessica's cousin. Your Honor, it was just over 1 year ago when I was coming home from school and had a frantic call from Jessica's mom. Jessica was missing, but never did I think that someone had taken her. There was no way this could happen to us. Not in this city, not in our neighborhood, not us. Over the next 2 weeks, our lives were turned upside down as Jessica's kidnapping became the one thing we all focused on. School and work were unimportant and meaningless until we found the person responsible for murdering our little girl. Even once he was arrested and overwhelming evidence found, the horror of what had been done could not pass. Burned into our memories were the last moments of our time with Jessica. A softball game the night before, looking up from shortstop and seeing the bouncing little girl scream, "Go Nicky Poo." I will never forget her attitude at our softball games, always happy and optimistic, and when you went to the plate, you were getting cheered for no matter what. One decision was all it took to take Jessica away from us. He can never take it back. He cannot apologize or say he regrets it because we will never have our Jessica back. Though she is safe, he still must answer to our justice system for the horrendous crime he had committed without empathy or regret. The details that have been revealed tell me that this was not an accident or that the person who did this to her had no emotion while they did it. Justice must be served for Jessica's sake and to take someone off the streets that could ruin the lives of countless other families. There is no escape in prison. He must live with his choices each and every day, knowing that this one decision ruined the remainder of his life and took the life of someone who had yet to realize her own vast potential. Regardless of the outcome tomorrow, our community in this state will never forget the bright star that was Jessica. She is a part of all of us, whether we knew her or not. Her goofy smile inspired thousands of people to go search for any signs of her on a cold October day. She further inspired us 2 weeks later when we spent an entire night listening to those who were closest to her recall their favorite memories and help us find some closure. Not a day goes by that some funny thing Jessica said or did doesn't pass through our heads. Sometimes we laugh and smile, other times it brings tears to our eyes. We will not be able to see our beautiful woman she would become because she was stolen from us. This scar will never heal in the hearts of every single person who learned of Jessica's story. Whatever happens, I can take solace in knowing that this event will haunt him for the remainder of his life. There is not a day that goes by where his decision to take her from us will not affect his current situation. We cannot bring Jessica back. That was something that was made sure of. But we must make sure that there is no future where he can escape this past. Jessica lives on within us, but for him there is no place on earth or after it where he is free. Thank you.
Your Honor, Gay Moore is the next family member.
Ms. Moore, thank you.
First, I'd like to thank you, Your Honor, for taking a moment to hear what we have to say. I appreciate that. I would like to take a few minutes to tell you about a little girl I loved and knew. She was my grandniece, Jessica Ridgeway. My husband and I live in Glenwood Springs, so we did not get to spend time with her day to day, but we did spend quite a bit of time with her, and we've always been a very close family. So we would visit them in Denver, and they would visit me in Glenwood Springs. I just want to tell you a little bit about her and what kind of person she was for me. She loved all the dogs in the family. Everybody has a dog. She loved to play with our dog. He was a big lab mix. There was a picture of him, big goofy dog. His name was Baxter. When she was about 5 or 6, she was too small to throw the ball for him, which he loved to do, so I suggested that she play tug-of-war with him instead. So she got the tug-of-war rope, and he got on the other end, and he knew that she was about half his size, so he would very gently tug, and she would pull as hard as she could. And then he would let go of the rope, and she would fall back and fall on her little butt and laugh, and then do it again. It was just so much fun for her. Then the Ridgeways moved to Westminster, so there was room for me to sleep with her, to sleep in her room and visit down there. Whenever I would come to visit, I would call them and tell them I was coming, and she would always ask, "Is Baxter coming too?" So of course Baxter always had to come to stay with us. In her house in Westminster, she always slept in the top bunk of her bunk bed, and when I came to visit, I always slept in the bottom bunk. She had one of those remote switches, so she could climb up into her top bunk and turn off the remote switch of her light so she didn't climb back down and have to climb back up again. When I came to visit, she would let me have the switch. Now when I come to visit, I sleep in the bottom bunk, Your Honor, but I get the switch and there's no little body up there in the bunk bed above me to say goodnight, Aunt Gay. Ever since she was a little girl, we all know she always wanted to be a cheerleader. That's all she ever talked about. She would watch the cheerleaders at the local high school, and she would practice their moves, and she would figure out her own routines. She would sing along with the TV in her boombox and make up little dance routines for us, her adoring audience. And every time she got a chance, she would get up there and do her little thing, and we'd have to watch. Then she'd come and sit on the couch with me and play with her laptop or play with the dog. 2 weeks before Jessica was abducted and murdered, I came down to visit. We sat on the couch. That night we were playing waitress and customer, and she would take our order and go in the kitchen and pretend that she was making an order and bring it out and serve it to us. She showed me how to use my new computer's video program. I made a video of myself and later deleted it because it wasn't really that good. She showed me some videos she'd made of herself on her own computer doing cheerleading routines. And we then exchanged email addresses because she had a new Gmail account. The next morning, we all went out for breakfast before I left to head back home. That was one of our things that we did. And Jessica was having a bad morning. She must have gotten up on the wrong side of the bed like we all do. She was grumpy and unwilling to do what her mother wanted her to do to get ready to go out. When we got to the restaurant, she didn't want to order off the kids' menu, so her mom and her grandma let her order off the main menu. And of course, when she got it, being only 10, she really only ate a few bites. And then she played with it for a while, and then I got annoyed and took it away from her. And of course, because she was having just a terrible day, she started to cry. And I felt really bad because I was annoyed with her, so I gave her a hug. Of course, I always sit next to her, and took her glasses off and gave her a tissue and said, well, from now on, we'll order breakfast together, and then you and I can share it, and it won't be something that you'll get yelled at for, making it go to waste. So then we all parted ways, gave her a big hug. She said goodbye to Baxter, and that was the last time I ever saw her. On that Friday, October 12th, October 5th, 2012, her Aunt Becca called me to say she was missing. My heart sank like a stone, and I was nauseous all night. We thought, what happened? We thought she'd been kidnapped and was being held somewhere, like sometimes happens to little kids. Also something terrible. I thought, okay, well, we can get her back. We can fix what's wrong. We can fix whatever trauma has happened. We can get that done. And of course, we all know now what happened. The medical examiner called the little body that they had found was Jessica. Well, you can fix broken, but you can't fix dead. You can't fix that. Now that I know what Jessica had to endure, what pain and fear and suffering she went through, I am angry, I am sad, I am determined. I'm determined that the person who committed this terrible crime and deliberately took Jessica away from her family never gets a chance to try it again. So I stand here before you today, Your Honor, and I'm respectfully requesting that you sentence the defendant to as many years as it takes, that he never, ever gets out of prison alive, ever. It won't fix Jessica, but it will make me feel a little better knowing that this person will never get the chance to commit a crime like this ever again. Thank you.
Your Honor, Wendy Pesavento is next.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, I would like to speak for a moment about my mother, Jessica's great-grandmother. In my whole life, I could count on one hand the number of times that I have seen my mother cry. And the reason is that she is a very strong and private person and is normally able to keep her deeper feelings from showing so publicly. But since October of last year, I have seen her cry so many times that I cannot keep count. She chokes up daily as she thinks of Jessica each morning and again at night. My mother has tried very hard to order in her mind why this would happen to her sweet, special great-grandchild. I have told her that there is no way to understand why he did what he did, because a normal person's mind does not work that way, and he is not normal. We will never be able to fathom the depth of his depravity. I find it very difficult to comfort my mother because there is little to say that does not remind us of what horror Jessica went through. Our only comfort is knowing that he was stopped before he could kill again, because we are sure he would have done it again and again. So we are at the point where we ask for justice for this horrific crime, but what will be enough? A child was taken and robbed of her life. She will never know, and we will never see, the promise that her life would bring. Her family and friends, even our community, will never be the same again. This will stay with us forever. Our grief is not something we can wish away or fix with the passage of time. Each day, week, month, and year, we will be reminded of what we have lost. The crime itself is one that leaves us all just grasping to understand. Why is one beautiful child's life the price for his fleeting and mindless self-gratification? We will most likely never be able to answer that. What is justice anyway? To me, it is mostly a half-empty dish served cold. It gives little comfort. But what price should he pay? No matter what happens, I know this: Jessica will be remembered and loved, while he will only be left forgotten and alone. But he should pay a higher price than that. When he understands what it feels like to be small, weak, and afraid, that will be justice. When he knows that his life is now empty and stretches ahead with no hope for a future, that will be justice. When he knows that his ability to overpower someone smaller than him does not equal power, we will have justice. When he realizes his gift of life has been wasted, then we will know justice. But how long will that take? He may tell us that he understands. He may tell us that he feels remorse, and that we should accept that as justice. Others in the future may think that he has come to know justice based on a set period of time that has passed. But we will never be able to see into his mind and see that this is true. Because it is too important to keep our children and our community safe, we cannot take the chance of being wrong. What will be long enough? To me, when he is old and decrepit and unable to physically act on his selfishness and greed, that may be long enough. When he is too feeble to entertain any thought through his head for more than a moment, that may be long enough for me. When he has spent his whole life weak, afraid, and alone, will that be long enough to bring justice? for me, yes, it will, if it keeps our children safe. Thank you.
Your Honor, Donna Moss is the next to address the court.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Your Honor, for allowing us to come and to speak. I am Jessica's great-grandmother on her other side of her family. I'm her dad's grandma. And I didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with Jessica because we live so far away. I didn't get time to spend with her except once in a while. When they were on vacation every year, they would come by and let us see her for dinner. And we got to see her in August before she died in October. And I remember that day so very well, and that's the memory I choose to hold in my heart for her. I choose not to look at justice, because there is no justice, knowing that there was never a price enough to pay for what we've given up, what was stolen from us. She was stolen by Austin Sigg. He took her from us in a selfish, uncaring manner. I look at it and I don't see anything that could have been anything that it could have been of any value to anyone, not even him. He hurt himself because the rest of his life he'll be probably behind bars. And my prayer is that he is. I pray for him, for his safety, because I'm an old correctional nurse and I know what happens to child offenders a lot of times in prisons. And I pray for his safety because I want him to wake up every morning and to look at himself and to know that it was his choice. It was his doing that put him there. And I pray that he finds it within himself to change from the creature that he was to someone he might be, even though he's housed in a prison. I can't express enough the fact that we had hoped so much for Jessica to come and spend the summer, in the summertime, a week with us or something, and we'd talked about that when she was there, and I thought what a fun time that was going to be, and it never will happen because of him. I pray that when you consider what is enough, no, not until he's an old decrepit man. That's not my view. My view is I want him to do the full extent of the law on every one of the 16 charges, and I'd like for him to do them consecutively rather than concurrently, because I don't want him to ever get a chance to get out and do what he did to our little angel, to another person's family member. I don't want him to have the opportunity. I know that this is probably, I'm not talking about Jessica and all the wonderful memories. I don't have enough. I don't have enough of those memories. So please, God, take it into consideration, Your Honor, to feel like I do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
This is Jessica's paternal grandmother.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Moss.
Hi, I am Angie Moss. I'm Jessica Ridgeway's grandmother, mother of her father. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with Jessica because of living so far away. On October 5th, 2012, my mother called me approximately 8:30 at night and told me that Jessica was missing. And I had hoped that maybe Jessica was being ornery and was at a friend's house or something. Sometimes kids do that. And I so hoped that that's what was happening. That was on a Friday I'll never forget. And on Tuesday we left Missouri for Colorado to come and see what we could do to help. That was a 3-week nightmare that still haunts me today. Jessica was my very first grandchild. And now when people ask me, how many grandkids do you have? I say, well, I have 7, but I had 8, but 1 was murdered. I don't see what kind of a person can take a poor, innocent, defenseless child and do the horrid things that were described. I can't fathom it. I was flying in last night from Missouri to Colorado to be here today. I seen a man in the airport and was kind of alarmed me because he kind of looked like Mr. Sigg, and it frightened me. I can't watch certain television programs anymore. I see Amber Alerts on the TV, and it just brings all that back. The pain, the suffering, the not knowing where she's at, not knowing if she was safe, if she was cold, if she had eaten. You know, grandparents aren't supposed to have to feel these feelings. They're supposed to be able to love them and spoil them and have good times and good memories. And I'll never have that with Jessica. She was my #1 little angel because I consider my grandkids my angels. And I don't know. I can't. I only could ask that you prosecute in the fullest extent of each count, consecutively, not concurrently, so that he serves each sentence, one sentence before the next. I can't imagine being his mother and trying to live with knowing that I raised a child that way, or that I had raised a child that was capable of doing that, rather. And I can't imagine the damage that's been done to his mother and his little brother, his family. I can't imagine it. I know the damage that's been done to me, to my son, to my mother, to the Ridgeways. Hopefully time will heal the pain. I'm having to seek counseling. I have nightmares. I have trouble sleeping. I see children in stores with their parents, and it horrifies me to see them get any distance at all away from their parent because of a monster that might be out there to grab them, like the one that grabbed my little Jessica. Thank you, Your Honor, for taking your time to listen to me.
Your Honor, Sara Ridgeway, Jessica's mother, as well as Becca Ridgeway, her aunt, and Christine Ridgeway, her grandmother. Jessica lived with these three.
Thank you all. However you want to proceed.
I'm going to start. So I'm Jessica Ridgeway's grandmother, and Sarah's my daughter, and Becca's my other daughter. We were the Three Musketeers until January 23rd, 2002. Then we were the Four Musketeers. I feel my life has been taking a turn for the worst. I had plans for going and doing all the things grandparents do with their grandchildren, things you couldn't do due to time or money with your own children. Go to parks, baseball games, museums, exhibits, travel. Those things I did with Jessica up until October 5th, 2012. Now there's nothing in my future. It looms long and empty. I missed her with everything I do, everything I see. There's no good night, Palma. No love you, Palma. That's what she called me. From her room to my room next to mine. No hugs or kisses or her little toes digging into mine on the couch. I even missed the little toot farts that she did in the morning when she slept with me. There are no more trips with my 81-year-old mother with Jessica in the back seat, talking or singing or taking pictures with her camera. I will not be able to go on trips and show her the things I saw when I was a child, or her mother, or her aunt, traveled when they were young. I can't teach her more of those things I taught her mother and her aunt when they were growing up. Sometimes I feel my life is over. I can't go a day without missing her. This monster took away from me and my family the light, at least of my life. It shattered the core of our family from my mother to my sisters, to my nephews, and our very extended family all over, and to a biggest extent, to my community. Also to my daughters, Sarah and Rebecca. Sarah and Rebecca and I raised Jessica. We were a village, and she was one of the other of us her whole life. I know nothing that's decided will bring her back, and we must move forward and move on to the things that Jessica has inspired us to do. But really, sometimes I don't want to. I want to crawl back into bed, and I never want to come out. I miss her with every breath and will forever. I would like to know that Mr. Sigg will be in a very small cell for the rest of his life. He will never enjoy the sun, the wind, the joys of the outside world. I can't hate him or be angry at him because that takes emotion. And for him, I don't have that. I just want him locked away forever because I think he would do it again if he had the chance and destroy another family the way that he did mine.
My name is Rebecca Ridgeway, R-I-D-G-E-W-A-Y. So I have written and rewritten this so many times that I just kind of threw it out and just started over a little bit. Jessica was my mini-me. She was my giggle maker. She was my teacher. She was my daughter from another mother. She was my life. The moment I looked into her big blue eyes, I knew my life was changed forever. I got the privilege of living with her, to watch her grow, and to help her learn. I have so many memories, so many that I can't even think of one without filling in more with more memories. She was a silly, curious, helpful, caring, and kind little girl. She was by no means perfect or always happy. She threw tantrums, she got whiny, and generally annoyed me sometimes. I do my best to move forward and not let this define me. In learning how to let my grief come over me and not let it overcome me. I choose to remember all the good and bad times I had with her, not what happened to her that day. I thank you, Judge Munsinger, for everything you have done, and I know in my heart that justice will be served for Jessica.
So, I'm actually not going to say anything today because I don't think that the defendant has the right to hear how he affected me, my family, or who Jessica was. Once we walk out of this courtroom, we'll not remember his name, and we'll all only remember Jessica and the legacy she created, as well as the Lassie Project in which she inspired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, but for argument, the people have no further presentation.
So the other listed ones that you...
Judge, I just really forgot something. I'm very sorry. We have a video. It's about 6 minutes, I believe, 6 or 7 minutes.
You had 2 other names on your list that you're not going to investigate. One other name, I believe.
Right, Judge. And